Okay, great. Sending data. Awesome. I'm gonna need a second to streaming. Excellent. What does this look like on here? Why what what's this about my content is for certain audiences? What's that about? Does it say that for everybody's? Whoa, what's that about? Okay, sweet. So we've got so we're going. All right. So we might be pretty much all set. All right. So we're going to be reading Philosophy of Psychology, Chapter 4, Moral Judgment. But first, there's some stuff I want to talk about, but we got to be quick because our sweet love is coming back soon, and I want to spend time with her. But I also definitely have to do a chapter a day in participation. I mean, in preparation. I was going to say in anticipation, then in preparation for our end of the month interviews. Um, okay, so I want to tell you a little story, and I actually realize this could be kind of relevant. Um, and then I guess I'm going to just say these things and make it really, really quick. All right, so I have to make sure that I keep open the chat just in case. All right. Uh, so last night it occurs to me. So first of all, I've known since high school that I'm a brain, or I've believed since high school that I am a brain. I've known since high school that I'm a brain, especially, I mean, if you're speaking, it's like there's only one organ that can do that. So, yeah, so I don't, so I'm going to say I've known. So I've known since high school that I'm a brain. It was my high school yearbook quote, in fact. Um, it was like, you don't, um, so based on the quote attributed to C.S. Lewis, which goes like, you're not a body, you don't have a soul, you have a body, you are a soul, okay? And what I said was, like, maybe you don't have a brain, you have a body, you are a brain. And yet, my understanding of what it means that I'm a brain has hit some points of pretty dramatic, you know, evolution. Um, just I keep learning more and more what that means, or what the implications are. And so it wasn't until last night. I think it was after the story I'm about to tell you. After I make these comments, I think it was after that what I'm about to show you happened. That I'm trying to go back to sleep. It's 4 in the morning, and I realize I don't have a body. A body has me, which is kind of a big deal. And it was probably sometime last year that I realized, and it's crazy. I mean, this is just the way the brain is. Like, none of the concept sort of changed, but it was more and more mechanisms, more and more parts of me, more and more of my constituents, more and more of us um, understand that we are a brain. And so the concept gets more and more integrated into the rest of the system, into the thinking. So it was last year I realized, oh wait, I am an organ in this body. And I know you're thinking, but you've known since high school that you're a brain, so you knew that you were an organ. Yeah, but I don't know what to tell you. No, it felt different when I realized, oh right, I am one of this body's organs. And I have a job, and I'm doing a pretty bad job at it. Well, at least I quit smoking, but I have a job of feeding this body. and taking care of it in other ways, strategizing to get it food, protection, all this other stuff, right? And if there were ever another interpretive system similar to the brain, like let's say the gut brain got really, really evolved, then I would be sharing, or not sharing this, but I and the gut would both be sharing the responsibility of taking care of this body. So yeah, I don't know if you get or if it's sounds like a big deal to you, but it's kind of a big deal to me. This coming for the first time ever saying this sentence. I don't have a body. A body has me. Now, I don't know when I'm actually going to be able to do this. Definitely won't be able to try to do this today. I want to avoid saying I in an extreme just to see what it's like. I was thinking about AI saying I, and that might be kind of complicated or require some special thing. I don't know. Anyway, so I was just thinking about the word I. There are, it's not the same mechanism at any given moment that is using the word I, right? So the most specific that you can get reliably is that I like refers to the brain or maybe the whole organism, right? And the brain is speaking on the whole organism's behalf. Um, Maybe this felt more profound at 4 a.m. I'm sticking by the profundity of the a body has me, but as far as the I is, so what is I? Because there isn't really an I, right? My point is that it's like a variable reference, right? At one given moment, it's one mechanism that's, sending out a sentence and using the title I, right? So if I say to you, gosh, I find her really attractive. I'm just looking at actually I'm looking at my dog's butt right now on my desktop background. But anyway, and also I shouldn't use this example. I have a partner. I'm very happy. We're going to have a long, long, long future. So, I want to drink alcohol right now, but also I don't want to drink alcohol. So that was two different mechanisms. One sent the first half of the sentence, or I guess we don't really know that. So there's two ways of looking at it. Either way, I is pointing to two different things. So either we can think of it as the mechanism that wants to drink whiskey, that instinct is going boo, 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 through the verbal, through Broca's area, sending out that part of the sentence, I want to drink whiskey. And then another one is doing the other part, but also I don't want to because I want to keep my energy up for this. Or the verbal mechanism is lying, quote unquote. First, it's reporting what one mechanism is reporting to it, and then it's reporting what a different mechanism is reporting to it. Okay, so I is just a word to give you information about this system, okay? And there's a lot going on in this system. So I just want to re-emphasize, as I have in my other streams, in my other videos, understand that you are not a singular thing. You are a set of many things. And so I can represent all kinds of things. Great. I is to give information about this body. I avoid I. I am part of a body. Excellent. Great. Next, before we start reading, one more thing. I want to tell you a story about last night. It's kind of scary, kind of creepy. Okay, so how do I do this? Boop, boop. Oh, so it was Abbott at first, okay. So there's my dog and my partner's dog, two German shepherds. I didn't think anything could possibly be going on. So I'm thinking it's Abbott barking, the one who my partner's but it's probably mine. So I'm like telling him to come upstairs and stuff. I'm telling him, guys, cut it out. Oh, I hope. Oh, I gotta turn this off cause I was buck naked when I came down. But that's enough for that probably anyway. So we're just gonna play it safe. So didn't know what was going on. I come down the stairs again, buck naked, and I hear a voice. Someone is talking, and not like they're trying to be heard. They're not whispering, but so I'm thinking, damn, because I'm a little bit worried about my car. I don't know. I'm in Springfield. The whole town just looks busted. We got a halfway house across the street. So I'm thinking my beautiful 2023 black SUV. Well, my parents. I'm thinking, oh shit, they're trying to break into it. So look out the window that you see, the window that you see. So you see the main door. You see another door to the right. You see the stairs there now. So between the stairs and the door, there's that window, and that's where my car is. So I'm trying to figure out what is going on, and I hear the voice trying to figure out. There's a window on the front door, but it's kind of obscured. Anyway, I look out the window, and there's this dude standing there, kind of, rocking back and forth, going, please help me, someone just help me, someone just help me. I mean, like straight out of a horror film. He's dressed like a biker, he's got the beard and everything. I don't know what's going on. And I'm usually not very cautious. Um, usually, if someone approaches me, I'm not super worried. I just, hey, what's going on? And I'm thinking I can defend myself. And then here, especially, I got the dogs, but I was cautious. I don't know if it was because I was, kind of half asleep. Didn't really feel half asleep. It may have been that, I was I about to say? Sorry, I got distracted. Um, oh, right. So I think what it was that this is such a strange situation already because the porch is closed in. Okay, it's got walls, right? So there's a screen door. So he opened the screen door and came in and and stood there, and he's just rocking back and forth. And anyone who is like willing to do that to in the middle of the night and in central Illinois. Okay, we're not in Arkansas, we're not in Alabama, but we're still in central Illinois, right? Like country music is what you hear at the bars, right? So anybody who's willing to walk onto someone's porch, like into the house, right? Well, not into the house, but you go through the first door. He's not even like, anybody. I mean, that's that guy. I think you gonna need to be worried. That's what's going on. And the dogs are barking, so I'm thinking he's probably not a burglar because he probably would go somewhere else and also wouldn't be standing there talking. But I'm still thinking could be a serial killer, and that's like maybe the first time that I ever seriously thought, am I dealing with a serial killer? And this man, and I just didn't, anybody who does that, I was thinking maybe he's not afraid of getting bit by these dogs. And so he'll just be slashing around, and even if he gets bit, no worries, he can do a lot of damage to us. So I just keep looking at the window. He's asking me to call an ambulance, but I don't know, he's standing upright, so I didn't really know what to think. Okay. So then I do call 911. So let's look at that now. So I get dressed. I just kept watching him, hoping he would leave, but he didn't. Oh shit! Wait, 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 wait.
That's right. I don't know. There's a man on my porch who was asking me to call an ambulance.
I'm really surprised.
How old are
that's
you?
not-
How old are you? 40, 45.
Anyways,
Yeah.
dispatch gets more information from me. He's having a seizure.
Yeah, why do you need an ambulance? Alright, oh, hold on. Get off the porch.
What? Oh, that's the end of that video. Oh, damn. Oh, no. Don't tell me I gotta go find another. Well, anyway, I'll just tell you. So I was like, all right, get off the porch. I'm gonna come out of the porch, but I don't want to come on the porch while you're there right now. So, or while you're there. So he kind of opens the screen door. He goes out there. I go onto the porch. I'm kind of keeping my distance. Okay, next. So then I go out there. We're waiting for the ambulance. So this is him. Yeah, I didn't really want to film him.
Yeah.
I did. I did want to a bit.
Yeah.
Can't even see anything. Can you?
Yeah.
It's just his back. He didn't even like turn around, which I appreciate.
Yeah. All right. Well, would you be more comfortable if you sat down?
Anyway, he kind of talks about how, thank you, nobody else is willing to help, whatever. Alright, whatever. I don't think anything. Although I
All right. Let's go out to
picturing
the
him
curb. I'll go out there with you.
like this.
Step
All
on
of a sudden,
down.
he turns around, pulls a giant knife out of his jacket, and I'm done for. So I was like, keep it moving, go to the curb. So then, a fire truck arrives first, then an ambulance, and the fireman kind of ticked me off. And I think if he had been white, everybody else is white, but if he had been white as well, I think I would have been more likely to say something. I still don't think I would have said anything. So here's what happens. He walks up. No hello. Well, to me anyway. Maybe he says hello to John, my visitor. Maybe he says, hello, so what's going on, man? Right, all I hear. Well, I think he was just like, alright, so what's going on, man? And, he goes, did you have a seizure? John goes, yeah. I had it over there. And he goes, oh, okay. Are you homeless? And John goes, what? No. Why? And the guy goes, because I never seen anybody have a seizure and then be walking around. And so that pissed me off. That bothered me. I didn't really like that. John says, okay, well, I am homeless, but, I could, there are places that I could go. It's just that, I really have a medical issue here. And the firefighter refuses to, why not just say, okay, I believe you. He just kept going, okay, no problem, no problem. And then so the ambulance arrives. He goes, okay, no problem. There's the ambulance. And John doesn't love the idea that, we're sort of, let's say that John was just trying, it was cold last night. So let's say John was just trying to get a place to sleep. But, do have the respect if someone lies to you and there's no real consequence to you, that you just go along with it. Especially if, they're lying because, especially if it's a stranger and they're lying about something, they're embarrassed about something, blah, blah, blah. You're already going along with it, being like, there's the ambulance. I think there's absolutely no need to express that you don't really believe him. I go back on the porch because I'm thinking, well, nobody's addressing me anyway. So I go back on the porch. I wanted to go back inside. It was cold, but then I didn't want to take my jacket off, and then someone knocks, and that would have annoyed me, and then I definitely would have gone off on him. Well, I think so. I don't really know. He walks towards the firefighter. John's off to the ambulance. The firefighter walks toward the screen door. He's like 2 feet away from me, still not saying anything to me. My porch light is on, so he can see me. I can barely see him. He walks up to the porch door and he's like trying to open it, but it's like kind of tricky. You have to press it just the right way to open it. It's like it was the authority that pissed me off, but I kept trying to remind myself he's not a cop. He's not a cop. He's a firefighter, and firefighters I think are much more noble. It's a much more noble cop. It's done. There's much less risk of being shitty, because humans will be shitty if they can. Not because they want to be shitty, but just because. Anyway, that's not the point. And we have to get into the reading. We have like an hour and a half. We have to read twice as fast as we normally do. So anyway, so he's trying to get the thing. I go, hello. All right. So actually, we can watch that. I recorded that. Hello.
Hey, good job just being a good citizen.
Yeah, no worries. All right.
No seizure. There's no seizure.
Oh, okay. Just to get a night to sleep, a place to sleep.
Can't not harm like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but just be safe out here, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we'll do. All right. Good night.
So I still can't really tell. I don't know whether you could hear what his reason was, like why he was convinced. He added something. He was like, yeah, so there's no seizure. And I was tempted to just be like, what difference does it make, bro? We don't take care of people. That dude's probably like mentally ill. He's out here sleeping in the cold. Difference does it fucking make that there wasn't a seizure? You're taking him to a hospital bed, aren't you? All right, do it. I mean, why are you out here telling me? And then so that he tells a citizen that, and they're like, oh, he lied to me. Oh, I'm not gonna help the next person, and then the next person fucking freezes to death. So, but anyway, this is not my home. I moved in this month, so I wasn't really trying to get into it with emergency services and have this address blacklisted or some shit. I can turn this up. In fact, I need to turn this up. Bop bop. All right, very good. So those are my stories, and now let's read about moral judgment. Okay, so we've done just a quick review. We've done rationality. Okay, and basically, yeah. Okay, experiments show that at least many of our mechanisms are not rational. So the standard picture of rationality is related to the idea that the aim of cognition is tracking truth. The standard picture of rationality claims that rationality consists in reasoning in accordance with the rules of logic, probability, and decision-making. However, studies of reasoning errors and biases, in particular the ones in the heuristics and biases program, of course led by Kahneman, reveal that we systematically fail to reason in accordance with the rules of logic, etc. And then there's this interesting thing about what is the actual aim of cognition. Is it to be rational and get to truth? Or is it like a different kind of rationality? And then they didn't talk about the argumentative theory of reasoning. By the way, after I read this, I emailed Hugo Mercier. He's in Paris. I'm going to be in Paris in April to ask if I could do an interview. He and Dan Sperber are the ones who came up with the argumentative theory of reasoning. He was like, no, I'm busy, bro. Sorry. I don't even think he read my email, to be honest, which is, I'm not upset. I'm just saying, because I was feeling cool that I'm telling you I had an interaction. So I want to be clear, I don't actually think he read my email. Just trying to be humble out here. Then we talked about self-knowledge. Of course, rationality is one of the Warsaw illusions. The 6 illusions that minds have about minds: will, essence, rationality, sense, attention, and storage. So for sense, that's outward sense and inward sense, that we can perceive the world as it is and that we can perceive ourselves as it is. So that part of it, the inner sense, self-knowledge, and basically experiments show our self-knowledge is kind of shit, but we saw that there maybe that so far we model like two categories of self-knowledge. We have the trivial and substantive self-knowledge. That's weird that that's not in the summary. I thought that was so important. So anyway, a bunch of discussion about how do we know ourselves? Do we know ourselves in the same way that we know other people? By observing our behavior, by observing sensory information of our inner state, which is the extreme parity view, that it's exactly the same as how we interpret or come to know other people, of course, with the difference that with them we don't have access to all the same information because we have like inner speech and visual imagery, were the two main ones. On the other end of the spectrum is the extreme peculiarity view, that we have special access to our inner life, and so how we know about ourselves is very different from how we know about others. All right, so that's self-knowledge, and then duality. And what are the categories, the systems, the types of processes? What are the categories, the systems, the types? I guess that's redundant. What are the systems? What are the types? What are the states? Now, what are the systems? What are the types of processes, or what are the states of attitudes that exist in the mind? Because clearly there's some mechanisms that are better at producing a reasonable result than other mechanisms. So we saw all of that in the duality, which is, of course, I had put a question mark, but it's not actually a question. It is confirmed that this is the essence illusion. So in the first 3 chapters, I'm very proud of myself because, I came up with the Warsaw illusions. And in the first 3 chapters of philosophy of psychology, and I'm a philosopher of, I prefer neuroscience. The first 3 chapters are 3 of my illusions, and I've always, I haven't worked on the illusions with anybody yet. And with my group, I'm still getting them caught up. We're reading Thinking Fast and Slow, but with my group, I want to talk to them like, hey. So now that you've read Thinking Fast and Slow, now that you've read a bit of psychology and stuff, and by the way, I'm looking for people to join the team. Now that you've read it, what do you think of the Warsaw illusions? Now, there are a few that are not in there. I can think of 2 right now that are not in there, and that I want to ask people whether they think these should be included. So, as I said, currently they are will, essence, rationality, sense, attention, storage, morality, and emotion. Maybe emotion can be, put into sense. Don't know. What do you think? Okay, nothing in the chat. No worries. So morality and emotion, maybe put those in. I don't know, but I know that this book covers 4 of my 6 illusions. And each chapter so far, of the 3 that it's covered so far, have been like, yeah, these are illusions. So very happy, very pleased with myself. We have a free will and responsibility chapter. And responsibility can kind of fall into it. Will in the Warsaw illusions, because we tend to blame and responsibility are such a big deal, kind of because of intention. So, one question that we have for ourselves for this chapter is, we're gonna try to be convinced to include morality in the Warsaw illusions. The important thing for me is, so will, essence, rationality, war, right? And then sense, attention, storage. Well, how do you pronounce Arkansas? You're right, Arkansas. So, Warsaw. And I was in Warsaw when I came up with them. So it's so perfect. How am I going to do morality? Could do like ethics. I don't know. But I don't want to replace essence. So I don't know. I don't need this. All right, let's get into it. So, Warsaw. All right, very good. Here we go. Chapter 4, Moral Judgment. 4.1, Introduction. This chapter continues the discussion of the fragmentation of the mind, but with a change of focus. In the previous chapter, we discussed a fragmentation that concerns reasoning, in particular, the fragmentation between type 1 and reasoning processes that are typically unconscious, automatic, low effort, associative, and so on. I'm not even going to respond, but you may know I very much dislike describing some processes as automatic and others as not, because it makes me think that you think that there is a soul doing the other things. Anyway, but okay, I just responded. My bad. In the previous chapter, we discussed a fragmentation that concerns reasoning, in particular, the fragmentation between type 1 reasoning processes that are typically unconscious, automatic, low effort, associative, and so on, and type 2 reasoning processes. You know what? That can be a little bit bigger. My bad. Hold on. Page. Here we go. I gotta do it. So annoying. It's like 2 streams. All right, great. And then type 2 reasoning processes that are typically conscious controlled, high effort, rule based, and so on. In this chapter, we discuss a different but related form of fragmentation, namely the fragmentation of the processes by which we arrive at moral judgments. As we saw in the previous chapter, the dual process theory is a useful theoretical framework for making sense of reasoning processes. The dual process framework has also been applied in other fields of psychological study, such as research on learning and on social cognition. We will argue in this chapter that the dual process framework is also useful for making sense of the processes by which people make moral judgments, such as the judgment that it is wrong to harm an innocent child, or that it is right to help an elderly stranger who is suffering. So we're going to probably get some biology in this chapter, and I think that'll be the first time. I'm hoping you may hear me mention these two areas a lot. Hoping we're going to get some talk about the ventral, medial, prefrontal cortex, and the dorsal. Was I holding it up high enough? Ventral, medial, prefrontal cortex, and the dorsal, lateral, prefrontal cortex. Okay, where this one, the ventral medial, the VMPFC, is involved in like emotionally processing a moral decision. So I guess maybe it has links, I forget, to the anterior cingulate. Well, anyway, to the limbic system. And then we have the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is more of the quote-unquote rational side. So whenever people have damage to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, maybe that's like there, and then just this one has to make a judgment. They're like indecisive because we need like a feeling of I am satisfied, which is why Herbert Simon has the idea of satisficing as, so that's just a cool thing you can look up. Satisficing. And then my term for that, before I knew this term, was threshing. So basically that you're processing something until you meet some sort of threshold of satisfaction with the decision, and satisfaction, of course, being an emotional thing. Okay, let's hit it. Emerging views in the psychological and neuroscientific. One moment. I am sorry. We are really going to hit it. I just want to like my own stream really quickly. How do I do that? Why am I not seeing it? Am I not seeing it? Oh, it was just like grayed out. Okay, great. Excellent. Great job. And then now it's just frozen. My whole phone is just frozen. Alright, hold on. Almost there. Boom. Done. Okay, excellent. So, emerging views in the psychological and neuroscientific studies of moral judgments suggest a dual process structure according to which moral judgments are determined by the interaction between two kinds of processes, emotion-based processes and reasoning-based processes. And whatever reasoning it is, it's not going to be reasoning like logical reasoning, but just something an approximate. This chapter will investigate details of the dual process structure of moral judgments. Of particular importance are the empirical studies of moral judgments by Jonathan Haidt and Joshua Green. Both Haidt, sometimes they say Haidt, and Green propose influential dual process theoretical accounts of moral judgments, but their accounts are importantly different in a number of ways. One of the objectives of this chapter is to clarify and discuss the difference between their two accounts. We will begin by discussing a series of influential studies of moral judgment by Elliot Turiel and his colleagues, and critiques of these studies by Richard Schrader and Jonathan Haidt in section 4.2. This debate will lead us to discuss the dual process theory of moral judgment, according to which moral judgments are the product of the interaction between emotion-based processes and reasoning-based processes. There are, however, several important details that need to be specified. One issue is what we call the interaction question, discussed in section 4.3, which asks, how do emotion-based processes and reasoning-based processes interact? This was not answered in we have the same question in the duality section. How do the more reasonable and the more reflexive, the less reasonable, the less reliable, the simpler mechanisms, how do they interact? And remember, we saw the parallel competitive model. So they're both running and they're like competing for who sort of gets to produce the behavior or the belief. Alternatively, there was the something interventionist model, where maybe it's the lazy interventionist model. Right, nor is there agreement on how type 1 processes and type 2 processes interact. But I'm surprised it was so early. Here we go. Yes, indeed. Parallel competitive model, the default intervention model, where type 1 processes are running by default, and then type 2 processes sometimes run and intervene. Next, there was the lawyer-client model. In this case, it's the lawyer is the type 2, and the client is the type 1. So the type 1 processes, they're running, they're doing their thing, and then, as is often the case, the type 2 processes really just play a role of trying to rationalize, defend, come up with a better reason than the type 1 processes could come up with for why the type 1 processes came up with the result they came up with. I had the so this lawyer-client model, you'll recall, my sort of objection or caveat is that it's only like this, that type 2 processes, which are the smarter, better processes, really just work to defend the type 1 processes. The caveat is that that's only because the smarter mechanisms in 99.9999% of humans think that the dumber mechanisms aren't that dumb. And that's the importance of this channel, of these videos, of this conversation, of these books, is that I need you to understand, we need all of us to understand that our intuition is not very reliable. It evolved to come up with answers to questions that are simple as fuck compared to the, a lot of the questions that we try to treat in the modern, or in this era. So that model, even if that's the correct, it's the characterization that's wrong. So whatever the details of this model, the lawyer-client model, are, many of them could be correct, except for that the evolved role of System 2 is to defend, to advocate, to rationalize the results of System 1. I'm willing to bet the house, bro. Not this one, but should I own one, I will owe it to you if you take this bet. If in our lifetime we find out that it just wouldn't make any sense. I think I am a big fan of the default intervention model. I think that that's right, but I do think that it's often the lawyer-client model, but that's just because the lawyer is misinformed. He doesn't have to be a lawyer. Yeah, great. So spread the word. Your intuition, well, all of you, is not as reasonable and reliable as, your intuition suggests. And so please understand, hey, you have this whole other system that can intervene if you just kind of let it, or think that that's important, or have those values. Speaking of which, I came up, and this is really half-baked, the dispatch value model during yesterday's stream, where maybe System 2, nope, too complicated to explain. You can see that in yesterday's stream. Actually, I might not even really remember what the idea was, to be honest with you. And oh, by the way, in fact, it is far from obvious that we need to choose only one model and reject the alternatives. The idea is that in many cases, type 2 processes just wait and see, which is consistent with the default intervention model. And then even when they are operating, their main job is to rationalize what type 1 processes do, which is consistent with the lawyer-client model. But sometimes type 2 processes do intervene, which creates a real competition between type 1 and type 2 processes, which is consistent with the parallel competitive model. Great. I don't know how valuable it was to review, but I gained a lot, and then yeah, because this will be on my YouTube channel. Excellent. All right, let's go. So there are, however, several important details that need to be specified about the interaction between emotion-based processes and reasoning-based processes for moral judgment. So there are several important details that need to be specified. One issue is what we call all right, hold on. I have to make sure I'm doing a good job of circling, underlining, so that when I'm discussing Dr. Schachtman, I can flip to a page and kind of recall. Right, so dual process theory of moral judgment between hate and green. Okay, they are competing. Okay, so one issue is what we call the interaction question. discussed in section 4.3, which asks, how do emotion-based processes and reasoning-based processes interact? In Haidt's model, reasoning processes have a relatively weak role of rationalizing affective judgments in a post hoc manner. The man and the elephant. But they have or the dog and the tail, the intuitive dog and the rational tail. In Haidt's model, reasoning processes have a relatively weak role of rationalizing affective judgments in a post hoc manner, but they have a stronger role of competing with affective processes or intervening in them in Green's model. Great. So Haidt says they rationalize, Green says they compete. Understood. Another issue is what we call the process question. Okay. Which is discussed in section 4.4, which asks, what are emotion-based processes and reasoning-based processes? Green suggests the intriguing idea that the distinction between emotion-based processes and reasoning-based processes corresponds to the philosophical distinction between utilitarianism and deontology. Interesting, not sure what that means yet. I'm guessing that the emotion-based processes are deontological. Why would he put them in that order then? So Green, I shouldn't have circled that. He was the last name circled. You know, let's no, we don't really have a second. So I would have thought that emotion-based processes, we are taking a second. I would have thought that the emotion-based processes were deontological. I guess just because deontology is simpler than utilitarianism. For utilitarianism, you have to like at least pretend to calculate. You know, if I do, I can't just say that this action is right or wrong. I gotta look at the utility, you know, for this person, for that person, of this consequence, of that consequence. On the other hand, deontology is like rules, right? This action is wrong. Boom, done. Whereas utilitarianism, well, in order to assess value, you actually can't really do that with reasoning processes, right? That's an emotional process. Huh. So need to calculate, reason, but then also need to value, right? The emotion. And then for this one, simple emotion rules reason. All right. So section 4.2. Excellent. Section 4.2, harm and emotion. So moral and conventional. Let us start with the influential developmental psychological studies of moral judgments by Turiel and followers. All right, well, first, let's do the moral conventional tasks. One of Turiel's main hypotheses is that the distinction between moral rules and convention rules is psychologically real. And this distinction is made by both adults and children, even at an early stage of cognitive development. See, for example, the two stories below. Children are aware of the difference between a violation of a moral rule, which is a moral violation, and a violation of a conventional rule, which is a conventional violation. Below is an example of each. Is this children in the Western world? Because I know that they've done this with, like, Indians, for instance. And their morality tends to include, sort of equate, have on the same level convention violations and moral violations. Look, given Indian people's background assumptions about how the world works. Okay, so he's going to talk about that. What I don't see him talking about is, as opposed to, well, I don't really know who you are or where you are, but as opposed to me, I'm weird, Western educated, industrial. What's the R? D is democratic. So I'm a member of a weird society. It's not like reason or rational, is it? Well, in any case, we won't be saying that we are reasonable or rational, that would just mean that we that's like one of our purported values. Alright, how am I even gonna find this quickly? Oh. Look in the index, hey? Okay. Not in the index. Oh no, I thought that was the chat. No, right. That's just the channels I'm streaming to. Maybe it's in the preface. Yeah, evaluating psychological studies. Our studies are on weird. Here we go. Weird, great. Rich. Come on, get the fuck out of here. Of course it's rich, bro. I didn't say anything about the. Alright, well, that's embarrassing. Alright, here we go. So maybe he's gonna talk about that. We'll see. Alright. Anyway, so below is an example of each. A number of nursery school children are playing outdoors. There are some swings in the yard, all of which are being used. One of the children decides that he now wants to use a swing. Seeing that they are all occupied, he goes to one of the swings where he pushes the other child off at the same time, hitting him. The child who has been pushed is hurt and begins to cry. Children are greeting a teacher who has just come into the nursery school. A number of children go up to her and say, "Good morning, Mrs. Jones." One of the children says, "Good morning, Mary." Torio's hypothesis is consistent with the empirical findings, in particular those involving what are known as moral conventional tasks, in which adults and children reliably distinguish moral violations from conventional violations in multiple ways. Don't know what that means. First, moral violations are typically regarded as more serious than conventional transgressions. For example, pushing the other child off the swing is worse than calling the teacher by her first name. Okay, for weird societies. Second, the wrongness of moral violations is more authority independent than the wrongness of conventional violations. Authority independent, more serious, more authority independent. For example, pushing the other child off the swing is still wrong, even if an authority figure, say a teacher, says that it is okay, while calling the teacher by her first name is okay if an authority figure, say the teacher herself, says that it is okay. Third, the wrongness of moral violations is more universal than the wrongness of conventional violations. For example, pushing the other child off the swing is wrong even in a country with a very different culture and values, while calling the teacher by her first name might be okay in a country with a very different culture and values. Another important finding is that moral judgments and conventional judgments are justified differently. The wrongness of moral violations The wrongness of moral violations, but not the wrongness of conventional violations, tends to be explained or justified in terms of harm in a broad sense, i.e., negative impacts on welfare, justice, or the rights of the individuals involved. For example, the wrongness of pushing the other child off the swing tends to be explained or justified in terms of the harm that the act causes to the child, while the wrongness of calling the teacher by her first name is not usually justified by reference to the harm to the teacher. These findings suggest that moral judgments are clearly distinguished from conventional judgments. Moral judgments, unlike conventional judgments, are the responses to perceived harms, and moral violations are judged to be seriously wrong, authority independently wrong, universally wrong, and so on. Let us call this view the harm account of moral judgments. Damn, I hope she's not home already. The studies of Turiel and colleagues are remarkable, and they strongly support the harm account. However, several researchers, most notably Richard Schrader and Jonathan Haidt, are skeptical. Their main worry is that the findings by Turiel and colleagues might only be true with some particular group of people. They might not be generally applicable to other cultural or socioeconomic groups. For example, an interview study found that people in Bhubaneswar, India, tended to moralize harmless violations. For example, people in Bhubaneswar treated a wide range of harmless violations related to food, clothing, sex roles, and other practices as moral violations, exhibiting the moral type response to them, i.e., regarding the relevant violation as seriously wrong, authority independently wrong, universally wrong, etc. For example, a widow in your community eats fish 2 or 3 times a day, which does not seem to harm anyone, was treated as a moral violation rather than a conventional one. However, this is not a conclusive objection to the harm account. As Turiel, Killen, and Helvig, 1987, point out, on closer scrutiny, the scenarios in the study by Schrader, Mapatra, and Miller might involve some kind of harm given Indian people's background assumptions about how the world works. For example, a widow in your community eats fish 2 or 3 times a day is harmful according to an Indian worldview because the act will offend their deceased husband's spirit and will cause the widow to suffer greatly. Again, the day after his father's death, the eldest son had a haircut and ate chicken. Another item in the study by Schrader and colleagues is harmful because the deceased father's soul will not receive salvation if the prescription of eating chicken is violated. I don't remember, Jonathan. Maybe, vaguely. Thus, despite the challenge by Schrader and colleagues, one can still maintain that the harm account is universally true. Moral judgment is a response to perceived harm both in the United States and in India. The difference between Indian people and American people lies in the fact that people in the two cultures have different worldviews. This has wide-ranging implications for what does and does not constitute a harmful action in each culture or worldview. E.g., a widow's eating fish is harmful for Indian people, but is not harmful for Americans people. Morality and harm. Jonathan Haidt sets out to resolve the dispute between Schrader and Turiel. Haidt's aim is to overcome the limitation of the study by Schrader and colleagues and find more convincing evidence against the harm account. The dog-eating study. This study, done in 1993, last reported in 1993, examines how participants, I'm guessing it was done in published in 1993, examines how participants from the United States and Brazil respond to harmful and harmless stories. All right, so here are 4 stories. Here's the dog story. A family's dog was killed. A family's dog was killed by a car in front of their house. They had heard that dog meat was delicious, so they cut up the dog's body, cooked it, and ate it for dinner. Now here's the chicken story. A man goes to the supermarket once a week and buys a dead chicken. Before cooking the chicken, he has sexual intercourse with it. He then cooks the chicken and eats it. Oh, because they have a thing like watching my videos. And so the fact that I swear and talk about naughty topics has been, they picked up on it, the software. The algorithm. I see. Because when I opened my stream, it was like, oh, sensitive content. What? Okay. I don't know if I'm going to do anything about that, bro. Sorry. But do I have to? I don't know. Here's a flag story. A woman is cleaning out her closet. A woman is cleaning out her closet and finds her old national flag. She doesn't want the flag anymore, so she cuts it up into pieces and uses the rags to clean her bathroom. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here's the promise story. A woman was dying, and on her deathbed, she asked her son to promise that he would visit her grave every week. The son loved his mother very much, so he promised to visit her grave every week. However, after his mother died, the son was too busy to keep his promise. I had decided on that voice before I knew what the story was. I did understand what was happening, but I committed. Do I regret it? A bit. These stories are prepared to be affect-laden. Some of the stories involve disrespect or disobedience, e.g. flag and promise, while others involve the emotion of disgust, e.g. the dog story, the chicken story. At the same time, these stories are prepared to be harmless. Dog, for example, involves a dead dog, which cannot be harmed. Deontological is going to be the emotion-based. Gotcha. Yes. Okay. Dog, for example, involves a dead dog, which cannot be harmed. The dog eating is a private and secret act, and thus nobody will be psychologically disturbed by watching the act or knowing about it. Just like in the studies by Turiel and colleagues, participants were asked to answer some questions about each story, such as, so the inference. Should the actor be stopped or punished in some way? Universality. Suppose you learn about two different foreign countries. In country A, people do that act very often, and in country B, they never do that act. Are both of these customs okay, or is one of them bad or wrong? Participants in this study were from 3 cities in 2 countries. Philadelphia, oh, that's where my baby's coming back from right now. Porto Alegre, which is a relatively westernized city in Brazil, and Recife, a less westernized city in Brazil. They were also assigned to either a high socioeconomic status group, so that's the SES group, or a low SES group. Okay. To a high SES group or a low SES group in the city they were in. The study found that both the city and the SES group influenced, that both like which city they're from and which SES group they're in had in effect influenced the moralizing tendency of the participants, where moralizing tendency is the tendency to treat a violation as a moral violation measured by their response to the interference question and the universality question. The more westernized participants were, the less moralizing they were. The higher SES group was less moralizing than the lower SES group. The majority of high SES people in Philadelphia did not moralize offensive, harmless acts, while the majority of low SES people in Recife did moralize them. For example, most of the high SES people in Philadelphia said that the act in the chicken story should not be stopped or punished, and that the custom concerning the act in chicken is not universal. In contrast, most of the low SES people in Recife said that the act in the chicken story should be stopped or punished, and that the custom concerning the act in chicken is universal. In addition to the questions about interference and universality, participants answered a question about the harm involved in the story, e.g., do you think anyone was harmed by what the man did to the dead dog? It turned out that, against the harm account, an answer of yes to this question about harm was not a very good predictor of participants' moralizing tendency. Many participants moralized the dog story and other stories, even though participants regarded them as harmless. So even if they said no, they might still moralize it. Okay. Thus, you'll let me know if the volume is too loud, right? Because I do see I'm going in the yellow, but it's not the red. Thus, stories like the dog story are harmless for those participants, whatever background assumptions they might have about how the world operates. This means that the study by Haidt and colleagues poses a more serious problem for the harm account than the study by Schrader and colleagues. This means that the study by Haidt and colleagues poses a more serious problem for the harm account than the study by Schrader and colleagues. Hold on. So the study by Schrader, what were their studies again? So the Schrader and colleagues one, right? So they found that that these convention violations were moralized. Okay. So then Haidt sets out to resolve the dispute. And so and so all right, hold on a second, bro. Okay, so there's Turiel, Haidt, and Schrader. I'm not doing a great job of keeping track. So Turiel, the studies by Turiel and colleagues are remarkable, and they strongly support the harm account. So the harm account, okay, so moral judgments, unlike conventional judgments, are the responses to perceived harms. Okay, so moral judgments are the responses to perceived harms. This is the harm account. Very good. And Turiel supports the harm account. Okie dokie. And then Schrader and Haidt are both skeptical. So Schrader says that there's a problem, but turns out it's not a conclusive objection, what Schrader says. So Schrader does this interview study. I'm circling way too much. I need to go back to underlining. So Schrader does this interview study. And says, hey, it's not about harm because, look, here are these examples that are just conventions. But except however, they aren't, to those people, harmless violations. So Turiel goes, "Yo, never mind, Schvader. You're saying I'm wrong about the harm account, that morality is about harm? Well, you're wrong to say that I'm wrong. Because morality is about harm. Because even in those convention violations, they think that there was harm. Okay, so far so good. I feel like I need to write this down actually. So, Turia says it's about harm. Then Schrader says, no, sometimes it's like convention. Conventions are harmless. And then Turiel's like, fuck off. To them, conventions are not harmless. Okay, very good. So then Height comes in and he's like, all right, let me see how I can contribute to this discussion. So he seeks to overcome the limitation of the study by Schrader and find more convincing evidence against the harm account. Okay? And what he finds is that an answer of yes. So because what he did in addition, so Height asks, in addition to what other people were already asking, he asks, my bad, he asks, like, he asked specifically, hey, do you think there was harm involved? Some people said yes, some people said no. The main thing, what matters is that yes was not a very good predictor of their moralizing tendency. Okay? So he's like, no correlation between opinion of harm and tendency to moralize. Because I'm just a little bit stuck. Why didn't he say no? Because isn't that the more interesting thing? Well, anyway, because when people said yes, there was harm done. Right, so he should have said no because it's harmless right here. So even when they didn't think harm was done, they still may have moralized. Okay, we're all caught up. Great job. So, this means that the study by Height and colleagues poses a more serious problem for the harm account than the study by Schrader and colleagues. During their interviews, some participants actually tried to come up with potential harmful aspects of the act in question. Oh, right, and this is how it relates, because are they just like rationalizing their moral judgment? Saying, oh yeah, well maybe, hey, maybe that chicken was poisoned. Oh, hey, maybe, I know you said that no one saw him eat the dog, but maybe someone actually did. Right. During their interview, alright, so we're gonna put, so here's where the, lawyer client. Okay, so during their interview, some participants actually tried to come up with potential harmful aspects of the act in question, e.g., eating dog meat is harmful because it would make a person sick. But it is likely that this type of reaction is a post hoc rationalization of their intuitive response. So we got type 2 here, type 1 here. Oh, you know what? How I'll put that? To it. And oh shit, she's back. All right, we're gonna take a little break. So very exciting. Well, I was talking about the reading, but it's also very exciting that baby's back. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn this off. Very exciting. So exciting. And then we're going to. Oh, actually, we're not going to turn that off, maybe. How should we do this? Yeah, oh, we don't have to turn it off at all. Okay, great. Baby! Hello! How are you? Glowing, bro. Here, pull up a chair, bro. Why did that just happen? That's weird. Oh, because I left. It's not on auto. Anyway. So exciting. What was that? Whoa, what's in that bag? Nothing. Alright, great. Alright, babes. How you doing?
I'm
Oh
good.
shit, that's gonna fall off. I don't know how to do this actually. More this way. There you go. Well, you gotta come over. We don't want them to know that you hate being close to me. Alright, there you go. Oh, this is gonna come off. Yeah. Get that nice and tight. And then loosen this. Can you come back in position? You gotta move over more, man. Your chair isn't even touching mine, bro. Okay, great, and then yeah, you can just leave. Okay, let's see what we got for it.
Oh my goodness.
Hold on,
Wow.
we'll do that
Oh my
second. So first, I got supplies for. You have to stay on this side of the microphone.
on this side.
Oh, the microphone doesn't actually have to be in the. There you go. Okay, good. Excellent. How was the drive?
It's good.
Great. So, this is for the
Affirmation.
affirmations. Yeah, affirmations. Oh, and mouse hunt instruction. You know, mantra and shit. It's week my puppy. So there's 12 of the big ones. Maybe we should. I think we should make a few big ones. All right. Next, canvas panels. That's also cool.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get any paint. I don't. You can use other things on there, can't you? Some more canvas panels. Oh yeah. Oh right. I forgot. That's great. Excellent. Some glitter.
Ooh. Oh
Thought
my
that would be pretty
god,
important.
mini glitter and funnel.
And then like some
Oh.
You know.
Oh my god, that's super fun.
foam stickers and adhesive gemstones. Some glue. Clear glue. Some glitter glue. Gold. And that's so far the material for affirmations and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, I'm
Yes,
excited.
exciting.
I'm
Very
so excited. Oh my god, look at baby Eris.
Oh, that's fun, huh?
That's so
But,
fun.
they're gonna be jealous
Because they can't see.
that. Excellent.
Oh my
So,
god.
I have no
Wow.
idea. It was really hard to like find smalls. I got these on the clearance because it had a $10 coupon. I hadn't like thought to go shopping for you. I was taking some Amazon stuff back, and and so that they have free returns at Kohl's, and then they give you $10 off, so that they get something out of it.
Yeah.
Minimum $25 purchase, and there was so many clearance racks, 70% off. So I thought these are cool. You'll still be comfortable.
I will be.
And then but then they're also like outdoor clothes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Is it an extra large though?
I don't
Oh no,
think
it's
so, because
not.
I don't think I
Okay,
would have gotten
right.
you an extra
No,
large.
I
Would
was
I?
no. Are
The
these so
medium petites.
okay? And like are they? But they're not pajamas though, because they like remind me of pajamas.
So you currently wear pajamas, right?
Do
So these are pajamas. You wear. What are you wearing right now? Can you just show them what you're wearing right now? 'Cause I
I
don't
mean
understand why this question.
I'm wearing.
Can you stand up and
pajamas.
show them how you? This is how you
I'm
dress,
wearing
right?
pajamas.
Are you trying to show them?
And there's a
Well,
hoodie.
anyway, I guess we're
there,
not gonna be able to show them. But anyway, you're wearing
I'm
leggings,
wearing
right?
pajamas.
And you tend to, and then in the summer you wear like gym shorts, right?
Mhm.
Like short gym shorts. So,
I see.
but also no, these are definitely not
They're
pajamas.
not. Okay.
No, these are like cool, like fabric pants.
Yeah,
So,
they are.
all right, next.
Next.
So these are also not pajamas. But I also don't know if they are going to be a good size.
Right.
Right.
So
And then
fun.
check this one out. This was not on the clearance. I saw this and I was like, oh, I gotta get it.
Oh, that's so nice.
Isn't that nice?
That's so
You can wear this when you go to
nice.
Paris. Okay, Brett. Here you go,
Aw,
Brett.
thank you so much. So, but these are, since they're clearance, can you not return them if they don't fit, or you can't return them because you used your coupon, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if they're the right size. So, but I'm just being an asshole. I can just answer clearly. I did check whether they can be returned, and they can be returned.
If they don't fit, then I'm not.
That's the
Gonna
point.
wear
That
it.
yes,
Oh,
that's
right,
why I
yeah.
checked.
Yeah, but I don't understand why you were like, I don't want to be an asshole.
No, I'm because I was tempted to be like, so would I have
Oh, I
bought
see.
clothes that might not fit, and if I can't return them, and I was like, you know what, don't do it. Just tell her yes, it can be returned.
I forced you to.
Yeah, you definitely did. I mean, first because you kept pushing. But Eris, gosh, how do I explain this to you? If they don't fit, I'm not gonna want to keep them. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hello. Can you like go here and then
Did
they
you
can
miss
say hi to you too?
me?
Oh, they can see you. Great.
Did you miss me?
Isn't that exciting? Isn't that awesome? That's great. All right, so we can hang out with Oliver for 15 more seconds, and then I want to see whether they fit or not.
Okay.
All right, 7 more seconds. Good boy, buddy.
Oh, it's so nice how much my animals like you.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Bless you.
He's a little sneezy.
Yes.
The kid sneezes. Hi.
Yes.
Did you miss me? All right. Well, it's definitely been 7 seconds, so
Definitely.
I will leave
Great.
you to it. Thank you.
Well, no.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna show you what they look like. I'm gonna try
That's
them on.
great. Excellent.
Okay.
Awesome.
So you're not gonna like restart. You're gonna stay paused.
I'm streaming right now.
No, I know, but you're not gonna like start reading again.
I mean, yeah, I think I probably will.
Okay.
I don't want you to feel rushed.
Okay.
And,
Right.
I don't
That
have
makes
any
sense.
jokes prepared to. So, all right, Tiger.
Okay. All right, it's you too, Tiger. Oh, look at how nice this rug looks.
By the way, that one was on the mannequin. It does look nice, doesn't it? I don't know why it was over here in everybody's way when it's so nice over there.
Oh, right.
Was there a reason that you didn't want to have it over there? Was it because there's like more foot traffic and you didn't want to wear it down? I get that.
It can be clean.
Oh, I thought it was about like wearing it down. Oh, it's just about the dirtiness.
Yeah, the dirtiness.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like.
Well, anyway, we can discuss it. They can't hear you now, so let's not discuss it now. But I will. I can watch you change though. That's nice. No, JK. Let's read a little bit. Ooh. Oh, I meant to be keeping my eye on the viewers, see if there was a spike once there was. Nope, maybe not. Or maybe they just all left as soon as they knew I was going to go back to reading. Okay. So during their interview, some participants actually tried to come up, blah, 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 blah. You remember the rationalization. Okay. Indeed, participants did not revise their judgment when the interviewer explicitly denied any alleged harm in the act, e.g., the dog meat was thoroughly cooked and was thus perfectly safe to consume. In light of this, participants tried to find some other harmful aspect of the act. This suggests that it is not the case that participants first recognize a harmful aspect of dog eating and then make a moral judgment about it. Rather, they first intuitively make a moral judgment that dog eating is wrong and then give a post hoc reason for that judgment by appealing to whatever harmful consequence that they can think of. So we've got what we call here enage. Their reaction is thus analogous to the participants of the stockings experiment by Nisbet and Wilson, who first chose a pair of stockings unconsciously influenced. That's great. That's awesome. That looks so good. That looks so good, bro. I love that. Huh? What do you mean?
They're quite big.
Well, yeah, they're baggy pants, bro. Or what are they like around the waist, around the hips?
I mean, they're quite loose.
Ah, okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I suppose they do fit. Technically, it's not like they're falling off. But
So are they falling off or not? Bro, get out.
what?
Get out. I'm pulling as hard as I can, and I'm all you can get is a little bit of underwear. What do you mean?
No, right. They're not falling down.
But right, not only are they not falling down, I don't even agree that they're loose. Oh, okay. How hard did you push there? Was that like an everyday, like I'm digging in my pockets push?
No, that was harder than that.
All right, dig in your pockets.
So that's good.
Dig. There's something in there. Something stuck. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, very good. And then, what do you think? Cause I think they look so good. Yeah.
I look at all this fabric, man. It's just like, I don't know. I don't think it fit.
Yeah.
It's not usually like how, I mean, I'm just like not an 8, like maybe a
Right.
6 max.
It's 6 max.
It's like petite, but.
Wait, so can you just walk around a little bit? Yeah, you don't like the feel?
I mean, not really.
Yeah. Okay, no worries.
But like, I mean, I'm
How much were they?
81.
$10, okay. Because, I mean, as you develop and get more comfortable eating food, snacking and stuff, so I'm okay wasting $10. Maybe, what do you think about that? Okay, right. I'm not asking what you think about me wasting $10. I'm asking if I'm willing to waste $10, are you willing to like? Do you like them otherwise? Like the idea of like if you were to fill them out, would you want to wear them?
I mean, I do snack. I don't think I'm gonna get
You don't think?
bigger.
What is that? A size? One size bigger? You said six max. Isn't it like every two?
Right, I'm like a two.
You're a two, but you can wear six. That's what you said, right?
Right.
Six max. So if you can wear between two and six, I'm thinking the sizes aren't that different from each other. And I'm thinking,
So I think really like four max.
okay, very good. And what about these?
These are nice.
I like that the look of those as well. Where are you? Damn it. Oh, there you
Pockets.
are. And how do? What about the size?
I mean, cause they're definitely like baggy and like bigger, but
Right, that's the style. But the waist.
right, yeah, right, that feels good. I mean, it's
Oh, great.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think these are nice.
Okay. But you're not thrilled. Well, I mean, obviously, I mean they're proper clothes, right?
Mhm.
Like that's why, right? That's you're not used to it, or is there
Right.
something that you don't like?
And I'm just, I wear like I don't wear like patterns usually.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's because you don't want anybody to look at you. But
yeah.
maybe if you're okay with people looking at you, that's fine. Love that cow. I love that sweater. Okay, great. All right. Speaking of sweaters, really like that sweater. All right, did you just get that in Pennsylvania?
No, it was I left it there.
Oh, you had
Like
left it there. Yeah.
yeah, I just love like
Here,
baggy.
can you turn the what? You love baggy stuff?
I love baggy sweaters.
Oh, great.
And like sweaters always.
Is that baggy enough?
No,
Oh, I see.
it's not. And I know you don't like. I don't know. It's Ariana Grande. She wears those like giant oversized sweaters.
Yeah.
Like almost like a. Anyway, I really like that style, and I love like just yeah. I just like with that pink sweater that you bought me. That's like extra small, and I mean I guess that's not like a hoodie, so that's okay. But like with hoodies, I know that they're gonna shrink, and I just like them really baggy. That's just like my preference.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, hold on. I want to express something. But I think you already know this, but maybe it's just not living right now. Um um can you come hang out? So I didn't buy these things to buy more of what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I buy these things?
Because they are not what I have. Because what I have is like not doesn't it's to have people not look at me or to to kind of blend in.
Or yeah, to the background. Yeah, to
Mm-hmm.
the nothingness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just gonna say what you just said, but you last year didn't know that you have self-minimizing behaviors and that you needed to start a journey to love yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so over this last year, you've been talking about how, you know, you are a bab, a boss ass bitch, and will be even more so the more you know that, and and so, you know, you can wear, if you want to, you know, some eyeliner, jewelry, whatever, um, that you can dress up if you know, want to, right? So I'm a little bit confused why you're telling me about that it's just your preference to wear baggy clothes. That's false. It is not your preference to wear baggy clothes. It's Mabel's preference to wear baggy clothes. You just didn't know there's a difference between you and Mabel until this year, until this past year.
What I'm supposed to say.
There's nothing you're supposed to say, but
Because I feel like, of course,
is it your preference to hunch over? Is it your preference to go like to sink your chest in and make sure people think you're you know, you're you know, a teenager named Greg? Is it your preference to like lean back? Is it your preference to apologize all the time? Is it your preference to giggle all the time and to just step back and make yourself small? And are those things your preferences? I don't know how justified that is. I don't think you know, like, you know what your preferences are when you're afraid of being seen, noticed, and judged, which I call Mabel's preferences. We don't know what your preferences are going to be when you're comfortable with yourself. When attention doesn't scare you.
So it's like it's not possible that I can like that
Come on.
style.
Come on.
I don't know. I'm just trying to make a distinction between like hoodies and other sweaters.
Sorry, are you saying that this is a hoodie? Turn around for a second. Turn around. I just want to, you know, you want to make the distinction between hoodies and other sweaters,
No,
and you're saying that you like your hoodies to be extra large.
Stop. Sweatshirts. So I have.
So what are other sweaters? What
like
is
the
this?
one that you bought me.
Yeah.
Pink one.
So is it like about the material?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's about the material.
About the material. Okay. So, I mean, you know, I guess we're just arguing now because I know that you know that I'm not making any claims about what's possible and what's not possible. I'm just making a claim about what I think is probable. So maybe we take a beat and then we can continue the conversation off stream.
Okay.
All right. What has changed here? Why did this get so big? Don't remember doing that. Page, iPhone. Oh, maybe I made that. Well, anyway. Oh, this is really big. It's like the iPhone like switched cameras or something. Okay, so that's that one.
Did you feed them dinner?
I did. Took them for a walk and gave them din din. Okay, and we are all set. All right, let's go. So, so we're talking about the debate between Turiel, Schwader, and Haidt. Schwader and Haidt. So Turiel claims morality for humans is about harm. Schwader and Haidt are like, nope, it can be about convention as well, and that can involve no harm. Okay. But what's so then we're moving on and we're moving closer to the whole dual process thing, right? For a dual process theory of moral judgment. So two processes, one process an emotion-based process, another process a reason-based process. Okay. So there were participants who were like, "Oh no, that's wrong. You can't do that." And then that was a type 1 process, probably an emotion based process going that is wrong. Then when they were then some participants actually tried to come up with potential harmful aspects of the act in question. Okay, but it is likely that this type of reaction is a post hoc rationalization of their intuitive response. And I think we're basically in most of this chapter. It looks like we're going to be thinking of intuition and emotion as like the same thing, or we're or in the same category, whatever, representative of the same category. Okay. So then, but then if that were addressed, that supposed reason for why the thing is harmful, right? That type 2 post hoc rationalization. If that were, denied because the interviewer explicitly denied any alleged harm in the act. In light of this, participants tried to find some other harmful aspect of the act. This suggests that it is not the case that participants first recognize a harmful aspect of dog eating. It's a dead dog. It was like roadkill of dog eating, and then make a moral judgment about it. Rather, they first intuitively make a moral judgment that dog eating is wrong, and then give a post hoc reason for that judgment by appealing to whatever harmful consequence they can think of, and also probably the possibility of a harmful consequence. Oh, but you don't really know that. Oh, but maybe this. Oh, but blah blah blah. Their reaction is thus analogous to the participants of the stockings experiment by Nisbet and Wilson, who first chose a pair of stockings unconsciously influenced by its location. 4 identical stockings, 40% of people choose the rightmost stocking, what they call the position effect. Who first chose a pair of stockings unconsciously influenced by its location and then gave a post hoc justification for their decision by appealing to some superior quality of that particular pair of stockings, even though the stockings were identical. The upshot of this is that the harm account is no longer true outside some limited cultural or socioeconomic groups, such as mine. Schwader's and Haidt's criticism of the harm account is intimately related to the criticism of the psychological studies that heavily rely on weird participants, Western educated, industrial, rich, democratic, which we mentioned in the introduction. Schwader distinguishes the culture in which the ethics of autonomy, in which a moral agent is regarded as an autonomous and individual being, is dominant. So those cultures, and the culture in which the ethics of community, in which a moral agent is essentially tied to the community to which they belong, is dominant. Japanese author, by the way. And the culture in co-written with an Italian, and the culture in which the ethics, I think, and I haven't looked her up actually, and she might actually be American, actually. I'm gonna look her up right now. She has an Italian sounding last name, but what's her name? Lisa, what's Bortolotti, Italian born, American. No, she's in England, University of Birmingham. Wow, why does she look so much like the woman who suggested I read this? Wait, hold on a second. So these that is so funny. Why do these women seem to have so much in common to me? Hold on, let me show you this. Let me show you these two professors of philosophy. One maybe German or something background. The one at UIC. Safari window. Where is Safari window? Where did it just go? Oh, here it is. Properties. Window capture. Safari. Here we go. Okay, and then I just need to do the same thing over here. And so portrait on Twitch, you guys can see it. Screen capture, add existing, Safari window, okay. All right, so now everybody can see it. So this is the professor of philosophy and author who I've had one conversation with, and we're gonna have another one at the end of January, and I want to know about this name. Name origin. Oh, Yiddish. Wow. Okay, so and then is okay, and then Maria. Name origin. I mean, it's just gonna be okay. It's Egyptian. Oh, Maria's a popular Russian. Okay, so Russian Jewish. And then look, and so then this professor of philosophy who's really cool. Gosh, I'm feeling so I don't know how to talk about a Jewish person right now. I'm just like over analyzing. I'm feeling like oh gosh, I feel like there's no way to stop digging this hole. And I feel like that just dug it. And then so she suggested that I read this book, which is co-authored by this woman, Italian background in the UK. So I just think that's really funny. Anyway? All right, we spent enough time on that. Great job. Boom, and boom. All right, very good. Let me just. Okay, excellent. All right, so let's give it an hour and a half. Hopefully we can do this. Let's give it an hour. Let's give it an hour. We're gonna read for this an hour, and we have to finish. Okay, here we go. Which means 20 pages, 3 minutes a page. Shit. Okay, here we go. So Schrader distinguishes the culture in which the ethics of autonomy, or in which the ethics of autonomy is dominant, the culture in which the ethics of community is dominant, and the culture in which the ethics of divinity is dominant. Okay? In which morality is essentially tied to spirituality, and the essence of moralizing for attaining spiritual purity and sanctity is dominant. The harm account is closely related to the first kind of culture, where the ethics of autonomy is dominant. It is not applicable to the other cultures. Okay? So, community, that's going to be like East Asian, which is why we went on that tangent about the author. And then divinity, that can be South Asian, Middle East, Eastern Europe, the South America, The harm account is close to blah, blah, blah. Okay. Not applicable in other cultures. Haidt stresses the importance of what he calls moral foundations. Moral foundations are cognitive modules upon which cultures construct moral matrices. The 5 moral foundations are care, harm, fairness, cheating, loyalty, betrayal, authority, subversion, sanctity, degradation. Different foundations are dominant in different groups. The harm account is closely related to the care harm foundation. It is not applicable to this cultural socioeconomic groups in which the care harm foundation is not dominant. It's crazy as me, someone who's weird, Western educated, blah blah, to think of a culture, to imagine that that there could be a morality where not just that there are other things that are also sort of as important as care harm, but that care harm is just not. Oh, maybe that's what it means. That care harm is still important, but it's just not dominant because there are other things up there. Okay. I'm curious about that. Okay, morality and affect. We have seen that the studies by Schrader and Haidt cast doubt on the harm account of moral judgment. They suggest that moral judgments are not necessarily a response to perceived harm. These studies, in particular Haidt's study, suggest an alternative view that moral judgments are a response to affectively charged transgressions. Ah, right. Okay. Rather than harmful transgressions. It's just that for us in weird societies, the only transgressions that are really affectively laden are the harmful ones. I mean, also, I get a feeling when I picture someone burning the flag or a holy text or something. In fact, the main strategy in the dog eating study was to elicit moral judgments by presenting the stories that are affectively loaded, disrespectful, or disgusting actions that feel wrong, yet that are harmless. A classic question about moral judgment is, are moral judgments based on reasoning or on emotion? Which is a stupid fucking question because we would not have survived as a species if we needed to in order to have a judgment about whether we should do something or whether we should punish someone and so on. Get out. So dumb. That's stupid. And that's a classic question. Classically stupid. A view would be that when I judge, for example, that killing an innocent person is wrong, I am making the judgment on the basis of my reasoning about the consequences of killing or about relevant rules and duties. Another view would be that when making a moral judgment about killing, I am making a judgment on the basis of my affective disapproval of the killing. Ugh, no, don't do it. And I mean, the question is easy. We know that disgust and, anyway, I'll let him. The dog eating study seems to support the latter view. It turns out, however, that the latter view is ambiguous. For example, the phrase, I am making this judgment on the basis of my affective approval of killing or disapproval of killing is open to at least 2 interpretations. It could mean that my judgment is causally influenced by affective disapproval, in which case it's separate, right? I have my affective disapproval, which leads to my judgment, or it could mean that my judgment is partly constituted by affective disapproval. So the affective disapproval is part of the judgment. The former view takes affective inputs to be a cause of moral judgments, in which case affective inputs and moral judgments are separate or distinct events. For example, my judgment about killing an innocent person is caused by my affective disapproval of killing an innocent person. The latter view, in contrast, takes affective inputs to be a part of moral judgments, in which case affective inputs and moral judgments are not separate. For example, my judgment about killing an innocent person is partly constituted by my affective disapproval of killing an innocent person. Or simply put, the judgment just is affective disapproval. That's where I would want to place my bet. We therefore have 2 slightly, but importantly, different views about moral judgment and emotion. The view that moral judgments are causally influenced by affective inputs, we call this causal moral sentimentalism. Causal moral sentimentalism. And the view that moral judgments are partly constituted by affective inputs, we call this constitutive moral sentimentalism. Okay? Causal moral sentimentalism and constitutive moral sentimentalism are distinct claims, but they're not completely independent. Suppose that it turns out that changes in affective inputs co-vary with changes in moral judgments. For example, one makes different moral judgments depending on whether or not one feels affective disapproval of an act. This is typical. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble paying attention. No worries. For example, one makes different moral judgments depending on whether or not one feels affective disapproval of an act. Okay. This is typically taken to be evidence for causal moral sentimentalism, but it could be taken to be evidence for constitutive moral sentimentalism as well. Thank you, Miyazono-san. The best explanation of the covariation would be that moral judgments are partly constituted by affective inputs. Thus, causal moral sentimentalism and constitutive moral sentimentalism can be supported by the same, or at least a similar, body of empirical evidence. The studies by Haidt and colleagues mentioned above are coherent with causal/constitutive moral sentimentalism. Moral judgment, or the moral type response, can be activated by offensive stories that do not involve harm, such as the flag story or the chicken story, which can be explained by the fact that, one, even without the presence of harm, those stories evoke affective reactions of the relevant kind, and two, moral judgment is caused/constituted by the affective reactions. Causal/constitutive moral sentimentalism has been supported by other empirical studies too. In one remarkable study, for example, highly hypnotizable participants participated in group hypnosis sessions in which they were given the post-hypnotic suggestion to feel a flash of disgust either when they read the word often or when they read the word take. They were given the post-hypnotic suggestion to feel a flash of disgust when they read often or take. Okay. Participants were then brought out of their hypnotic state and were asked to evaluate some moral transgressions presented as vignettes, such as the one below. There were two versions of each vignette, one with the word often and one with the word take. Okay. Don't really get where this is going. Alright, let's see. Oh, I gotta make sure. Alright, so Congressman Arnold Paxton. One moment. There we go. Excellent. Congressman Arnold Paxton frequently gives speeches condemning corruption and arguing for campaign finance reform. But he is just trying to cover up the fact that he himself will take bribes from / is often bribed by the tobacco lobby and other special interests to promote their legislation. The result was that participants rated the transgression in the vignette as being morally worse when a hypnotic trigger word was present in the vignette than when the word was absent. For example, in response to the take version of the Paxton vignette, participants who received the post-hypnotic suggestion that they should be disgusted with the word take rated Congressman Paxton's act as morally worse than when they read the often version, and vice versa, presumably. This result can be nicely explained by the causal/constitutive moral sentimentalist idea that disgust with a word causes or constitutes their harsh moral judgment of a vignette containing the word. These results strongly support the idea that affective inputs causally or constitutively influence moral judgments. However, it is important to note that these results do not necessarily show that affective processes dominate moral judgment, nor do they imply that reasoning processes do not play any role in moral judgment. Think back to the discussion of reasoning in earlier chapters. In chapter 1, we saw that our reasoning is often based on heuristic processes. But in chapter 3, we also argued that heuristic type 1 processes interact with type 2 processes. A similar thing can be said about emotion and reasoning in moral judgment. Moral judgment is often affective, but affective processes might interact with reasoning processes. In other words, there can be an analogy between the dual structure concerning reasoning, where type 1 processes and type 2 processes interact with each other, and the dual structure concerning moral judgment, where affective processes and reasoning processes interact with each other. Indeed, the analogy between heuristic type 1 processes in reasoning and affective processes in moral judgment seems apt. An affective moral judgment can be understood as a form of heuristic type 1 judgment. As Kahneman noted, a heuristic judgment replaces a difficult question with an easy question. For example, replacing a difficult probabilistic judgment, what is the probability of Linda being a bank teller, with an easy stereotypical judgment? Is Linda like a stereotypical bank teller? We can make sense of affective influence on moral judgment in the same way. Perhaps what we do is replace a difficult question of morality, is this the right thing to do, with an easy question of emotion. How do I feel about this action? We will examine the dual process theory of moral judgment in the next section. I am allowed however long it takes to get to 55, so somewhere between 1 and 2 minutes to say what I'm going to say. In fact, I think I can do it faster if I get to it. I've always been so annoyed. I love this because I've always been so annoyed whenever I watch TV. It's usually in TV and movies where there's this dialogue where people are confused how something can be right when it feels so wrong. And I didn't really understand that. I've never sort of taken for granted that moral things will feel good and immoral things will feel bad. So yeah, patting myself on the back here. So that's really wild. And one project that I really want to do is just make it absurdly obvious, because it's already obvious to me. It's absurdly obvious the way that superheroes make save decisions based on what feels right and what would feel right to the audience. And this is never, I don't know about never, there's a lot of fiction out there, but it is, for probably most people, the content they have consumed, it is never acknowledged that we are not doing any kind of a moral or ethical analysis. It is just about what feels right. So in the Copenhagen test, and I can go past 55 maybe, no, because nobody's watching right now. In the Copenhagen test, there's the opening scene, which is the Copenhagen test. The soldier has to is being tested. He doesn't know he's being tested, and is instructed to find one hostage to save. He has to choose one hostage out of the hostages that are going to come running towards him. There is one spot on the helicopter. He's supposed to, favor a hostage that's an American citizen. Well, the first hostage that he sees is a non-American citizen child, and so he promises this child, "Oh, I'm gonna save you. I'm gonna save you." It was a kind of a difficult scene to watch for me because it's just so dumb. I'm gonna save you. I'm gonna save you. And then this American woman who has been sent in to test him comes and says, "Sorry, spoiler alert." Comes and says, "Hey, hey, I'm American. Please save me." And he lets her die. and has a panic attack about it. So we're not mad at him. So he, maybe I mean, I guess what you would do is the post hoc rationalization, and that's what I think it would be. But anyway, how you would justify it is you would say, oh, but it's a child. Okay, except he didn't ask this woman whether she had children. There might be people depending on her. She might have children back home. And of course, if that fact had been stated, that would change the moral equation. Um, but if it isn't stated, that's still like a very real possibility. She is, in her 30s, I think. I mean, that's what she looked to me in that scene. And this is just such a I'm okay spending a couple of minutes on this because this is just such an important point about that we have this affect heuristic of rather than trying to figure out whether something is good or bad, we just check in what our feeling is about it, right? Do we feel good? Does it sing? Or do we feel bad? Does it choke? It's obvious, right, why we would evolve this way, to have like a shortcut to like know what to do and what not to do in certain things so that each individual doesn't have to keep thinking through it. That it's the same thing with disgust. It's the same thing with, maybe you don't want each member of the species to have to evaluate, should I eat next to this giant mound of poop? So instead, what you do is you just program the species to all not be able to stand the smell, the taste. Ugh. Even just saying the taste, right? I have an affective reaction, right? You don't need to know anything about poo and why it's harmful. You just ugh, and then you're safe. So yeah, I'm making this face because I'm a little bit frustrated that this isn't obvious. Feeling a little bit lonely, maybe, is how I would articulate this. I thought nobody was watching, but it was me. I turned off my phone because I see there's only one viewer, and I thought it was this phone. Oopsie. Still have this mystery viewer who liked my. It was very exciting. You tickle me, bro. You make me very excited. Anyway, I don't have to give a complete explanation of that thought. I made that little contribution, and you'll keep seeing that evolve and become clearer and clearer the more that I take these opportunities to kind of talk through it. Okay. So sing, show, affect heuristic. Okay, so section 4.3, interaction between affective processes and reasoning processes. Probably going to say we don't really know. Models of interaction. Or he's going to say, here are some options. Models of interaction. We have discussed some basic ideas of the dual process theory of moral judgment, according to which affective processes and reasoning processes interact with each other. We will now clarify this theory by investigating two crucial questions which correspond to the process question and the interaction question discussed in Chapter 3. Process. What are affective processes and reasoning processes? Interaction. How do affective processes and reasoning processes interact? Let us start with the interaction question. In Chapter 3, we discussed three models of interaction or relation. In three models of interaction or relation between type 1 and type 2 processes of reasoning: the parallel competitive model, the default intervention model, and the lawyer-client model. Analogously, we can think of three models of interaction between affective processes and reasoning processes. See box 4A. One thing I want to say is that height, just to really drive it home, height talks about those moral foundations as being like taste. Okay. So to bring home the thing of, the poop thing and blah, blah. Okay. Box 4A. Models, and by the way, of course, we know that taste and smell are, very closely related. Box 4A, models of interaction between type 1 and type 2 processes. The parallel competitive model of moral judgments. Affective processes and reasoning processes compete with each other. Oh, this is all the same. Okay, well, we talked about that at the beginning of the stream, and I gotta hurry up. So, Haidt, 2001, proposes the social intuitionist model of moral judgment, which is a good example, of the lawyer-client model. Or more precisely, the lawyer-client analogy is something we borrow from Haidt himself. Okay? Reasoning processes are more like a lawyer trying to build a case than reasoning processes are more like a lawyer trying to build a case than a judge searching for truth. Right, because the reasoning processes think that the intuition is reliable, because we evolved to trust our intuition, because otherwise, when, no, I don't think we should eat that poop. Oh, wait, but actually, I don't know. That's actually just an intuition. You know what? Let's run a test. I'll eat the poop, you don't eat the poop, and let's see what happens. Because, I'm not gonna just be a little bitch to my intuition. Well, those people who refuse to be bitches to their intuition died. Okay? So, reasoning processes are more like a lawyer trying to build a case than a judge searching for truth. Haidt also proposes the analogy of the press secretary for a secret administration. Moral reasoning is often like the press secretary for a secretive administration, constantly generating the most persuasive arguments it can muster for policies whose true origins and goals are unknown. Okay, but a judge is also dealing, well, not trying to generate the most persuasive arguments, but I've already responded to that. But a judge also, it's unknown. Just the judge is on the quest. And I think that we can make the transition from lawyer client to judge suspect or police, criminal or whatever, or suspect. The social intuitionist model has two major claims. First, that moral intuitions, including moral emotions, come first and directly cause moral judgments. And second, that moral reasoning is usually an ex post facto process to influence the intuitions and hence judgments of other people. The social intuitionist model is nicely illustrated by what Haidt calls moral dumbfounding. Julia and Mark are brother and sister. They are traveling together in France on summer vacation from college. One night, they are staying alone in a cabin near the beach. They decide that it would be interesting and fun this is actually about that. Okay, I can't read it with this voice then. They decide that it would be interesting and fun if they tried making love. At the very least, it would be a new experience for each of them. Julie was already taking birth control pills, but Mark uses a condom too, just to be safe. Oh, fuck, I can't even read this, bro. I can't help think of my own. They both enjoy making love, but they decide not to do it again. Oh, intrusive thoughts, bro. They keep that night as a special secret between them, which makes them feel even closer to each other. What do you think about that? Was it wrong for them to make love? So I don't really think that it's that wrong, but it is. In response to this story, people first intuitively think that it is wrong for Julie and Mark to have sexual intercourse. But then, when asked, why is it wrong? They search for a post hoc justification of the intuitive answer. It turns out that the Julie and Mark story is cleverly constructed in such a way that it is very difficult to come up with a truly satisfactory justification of the intuitive answer. Some might appeal to the dangers of inbreeding, which is not a good justification. It is said that Julie and Mark carefully use 2 forms of birth control. Others might appeal to the bad effect on the relationship between Julie and Mark, which again is not a good justification. It is said that Julie and Mark feel even closer to each other. And then, of course, you're just going, oh, yeah, but that might change. Or, oh, you know, this crazy bitch Julie, is probably her idea and she might put a hole in the condom. Or Mark, whoever's idea it was, might have tampered. Hold on. Okay, let's just say for the rest of their lives, they felt closer to each other. And also, what did they do? How did they mess with the birth control? Eventually, many people end up saying something like, I know it's wrong, but I can't come up with a reason why. And I bet they say it in an even sneakier, more fucking annoying shithead way. I bet they say, I know it's wrong, but I just can't articulate right now why it's wrong. And why are you pressing me on this? You want me to approve of you having sex with your sister, doctor? Lab scientist? I mean, researcher? People, I hate humans, to be honest with you. Note that the social intuitionist model is not committed to the radical claim that reasoning processes only provide post hoc rationalizations of intuitive responses. Good. So, Haidt carefully distanced himself from Hume's radical claim that reason is and ought only to be the slave of the passions and can never pretend to any other office than to serve and obey them. Hume's model seems to be that the relationship between affective processes and reasoning processes is just like the one between slaves and their master, where the slaves can only obey the order of their master. So, like I said, I agree that we evolved for that to be the case, but I have to believe that that doesn't have to be the case. In contrast, Haidt's model is that the relationship between them is more like the one between a lawyer and their client. Good lawyers do what they can to help their clients, but they sometimes refuse to go along with requests. Reasoning processes might overweigh affective processes when a person has enough time to consider the question, when the person has a strong motivation to be accurate, and when affective input is relatively weak. By the way, these are 3 crucial conditions for type 2 processes. Thus, the social intuitionist model contains an element of the default interventionist model. Still, the social intuitionist model insists that it is atypical that reasoning processes refuse to go along. That it is atypical that reasoning processes refuse to go along with intuitive responses. Post hoc rationalization is the typical activity and is the main job of reasoning processes, according to that model. When it comes to determining one's moral judgment and its content, the role of affective processes is overwhelmingly more important than that of reasoning processes. I can definitely, okay. In response, several philosophers have challenged Haidt's social intuitionist model, and the more general argument for the dominating role. I'm sorry, I just remembered something. 2 things. I remembered another thing. I was about to let it go. Okay, 1. I have to tag a journal entry with productivity conditions. And then 2, part of my like 20-minute little rant about I mean, I guess I do them every video about, you know, my dynamic with father and the future of our relationship. Part of it is that I had forgotten to say, and I'm about to freaking lose it. Hold on. Oh yeah, a lot of these questions are, are not yet definitively resolved. Why wouldn't you want to encourage your son whose answer, is very similar to other people, other, philosophers and scientists who are trying to answer the question, even if it's not the same as yours? Well, not why wouldn't you? Because I know why, but I'm frustrated. I'm saddened that he who could have understood this potential answer isn't, even if he disagrees with it, specifically that like there's no mystery really, or there's not a whole lot of mystery about consciousness, about what it is, just about how we can understand it. That's the only mystery, how we can understand it, is what I say. But he thinks there's a whole mystery left about what it is, because he's unsatisfied that he's just a bunch of cells. So, but maybe a quantum mechanics cells, that would be okay. Um, so it's, yeah, it's sad that because we could both be supporting each other, right? You could be like, all right, that's interesting. I don't know about it, but so explain the reasonings. Okay, I see how there are some reasons for it. So, we should keep doing this discussion, and, and then you keep developing that. I'll point out holes that I think are there. Point out holes or whatever. And, we could have this really, really fun, cool exchange, and it could be over the course of years. And instead, we're just not talking because every time we talk, it isn't an exchange where we can tolerate that the other person believes blah blah blah. So I can't tolerate that he thinks it's so easy to dismiss what I think. His answer, the intuitive answer, and my answer, the recently indicated by research answer, is not easy to reject for me, because it was the same thing I believed for years, and because it's the same thing I still experience, I still feel. I still don't feel like cells, as I kind of was talking about at the beginning of this stream. And, but I just think the research indicates blank. And he thinks experience clearly indicates something. And that there's research that allows for this thing. And so we could have this really cool project to fucking discuss things. So yeah, fuck the parts of you that are interfering with that. And what it is it's threat, like avoidance, threat to having a singular narrative. Um, yeah, how dare you put another potential narrative on my plate? Alarms are ringing, and he has no idea that he has these strong alarms, or that his alarms aren't necessarily justified. And so that's what it is. All right, so 0 to 20, let's say, is when I was talking about this. And we could have ongoing discussion. And given my answer is legitimate, plenty of smart, accomplished, involved people agree with me, why not encourage me to develop it? Because, I came up with it independently. Encourage me to develop it and be proud. Why stop me when we don't actually know the answer? I mean, and also he probably doesn't even realize that he's stopping me when every time we talk about it, he says, "Oh no, 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 that's not right. Oh, of course that's wrong." Okay, so 0, 20 something to, let's say 0 to 25, 0, 0. Okay, back to it. Why does that say that I've been live for 2 hours and that says 2 hours and 24 minutes? Maybe I started recording like a long time. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, anyway, so where are we? Oh, fuck that sentence. Okay, so several philosophers have challenged Haidt's social intuitionist model, and the more general argument for the dominating role of raw emotional reactions in the formulation of moral attitudes. For instance, Jeanette Kennett and Cordelia Fine have pointed out that Haidt attacks the causal role of reason in moral judgment by emphasizing 1. The importance of automatic evaluations and intuitive processes in explaining human behavior, which we reviewed in Chapter 3. 2. The fact that biases affect reasoning, which we reviewed in Chapter 1. And 3. The pervasiveness of post hoc justifications offered by human agents for their behavior, which we reviewed in Chapter 2. Okay. According to Kennett and Fine, based on 1 to 3, Haidt effectively argues that human agents are not reason responders. Okay. Wait, do these... Okay. Agents can be characterized as reason trackers and reason responders. They are reason trackers when they recognize something as a reason for a judgment or an action and can judge or act according to such a reason. But they are reason responders when, in addition to tracking reasons, they respond to those reasons as reasons for a judgment or an action. Whereas non-human animals can track reasons, they most likely can't respond to reasons. Reason tracking seems to be something automatic and often unconscious that maps on a system 1, whereas reason responding seems to be something deliberate and conscious that maps on to system 2. Traditionally, moral philosophers have attributed to human agents the capacity to respond to reasons and the capacity to be guided by reasoning in their moral judgment. Do I understand what reason responding is? They respond to those reasons as reasons for an action. So, but that's not the important. It's just the respond. But has that been explained? The reason responding seems to be something deliberate and conscious. Fuck. Why do you guys insist on saying stupid shit? You know that you don't know what deliberate or conscious means as far as like an action. You only know it as the reception, as awareness. Ugh. Traditionally, moral philosophers have attributed to human agents the capacity to respond to reasons and the capacity to be guided by reasoning in their moral judgment. However, Haidt seems to suggest that the capacity for responding to reasons in human agents is an illusion. I'm almost definitely going, still don't know what's happening, but I am almost definitely, I'm just going to put, I agree, I'm almost definitely going to agree with Haidt because you put reason and illusion in a sentence, and I'm like, yeah. When it appears that human agents are responding to reasons, in reality, they are typically playing the lawyer or the press secretary role, offering reasons as a post hoc justification for a moral judgment they have already arrived at by socially constructed intuitions. That's crazy. I think I might think he's too pessimistic, actually. I might not actually agree with him. Let's review this. So when it they are apparent post hoc justification, blah blah. According to Kennett and Fine, this picture of moral judgment does not do justice to the fact that human agents have the capacity for moral agency, and minimizes the role of reasoning in the formation of moral judgments. How are competent adult human agents different from non-human animals, young children, and incompetent adults when making moral judgments if we cannot describe them as reason responders? See, this is just screaming natural compulsion to me. And that that Kennett and Fine are just trying to rationalize their need, or that these rationalizations are flowing from their need to believe that they are reasonable and that they are not incompetent adults. But they probably are. So, NACO, natural compulsion. Always be skeptical when you know that a conclusion is a natural compulsion. Always look extra carefully at the reasons given. And their reason seems to be, but then what makes us different from incompetent adults? I'm starting to think nothing, babe. That was sexist. I'm sorry, I should not have said babe. I'm starting to think nothing, doctors. Height underestimates the fact that human agents can effortfully override judgments based on moral intuitions, according to Kennett and Fine in 2009 on page 93 of their book. Because human agents have values and are responsive to reasons. Gosh, I can't wait until I'm so glad I finally started streaming, because I can't wait until I can like look over and other people see what I see. Am I tripping, or is that stupidly circular? Despite their challenge to height, namely that he exaggerates the illusory nature of reason responsiveness in human agents, Kennett and Fine recognize the importance of his work and appreciate the fact that the empirical evidence on moral judgment has forced philosophers to think more carefully about the role of intuitions. It is certainly very plausible that much of the processing underpinnings our everyday moral judgment and behavior. It is certainly very plausible that much of the processing underpinning our everyday moral judgment and behavior is done automatically and with little effortful cognition. Nonetheless, a close examination of the social cognitive psychology literature suggests that Haidt's claim that moral reasoning is rarely the direct cause of moral judgment is to overstate the primacy of automatic processes in social judgment and to underplay the contribution of controlled processes. One question: what are controlled processes? I am almost certain that's crazy. That would be crazy, though. I mean, I'm not certain, because that would be crazy if that stumped them. But what are controlled processes? Do you mean that the soul is getting involved? A close examination of social cognitive psychology literature? Give me details, bro. You did the close examination, didn't you? Or did you not? Give me details, bro. Anyway, more than a post hoc rationalization. The lawyer-client model of interaction. We only have 6 minutes, so I guess we're not going to finish the chapter, huh? If we read super fast, at least we can finish the section. Okay, more than a post hoc rationalization. The lawyer-client model of interaction, such as the social intuitionist theory, can be challenged for empirical reasons as well. You mean besides desperation, desperate reasons of desperation, your need to believe that you're rational? That's great. Nah, I don't really know what you mean by as well, bro. In particular, Green and colleagues, you know what, this is a great page to discuss with Maria Schachtman. Yeah. In particular, Green and colleagues conducted a series of fMRI experiments whose results better fit the parallel competitive model, or the default intervention model, than the lawyer-client model. Okay, it's a mix, bro. You even said that Haidt's social intuitionist model includes a bit of the default intervention model, bro. All right, the trolley slash footbridge study. In this influential study, Green and colleagues compared two different kinds of sacrificial dilemmas, personal and impersonal dilemmas, involving the option of sacrificing someone's life to save others. Basically, either you push them or you just like pull a thing and it's more indirect, I think. Personal sacrificial dilemmas involve the option of sacrificing someone's life in an up close and personal manner, e.g., the footbridge dilemma, while impersonal sacrificial dilemmas involve the option of sacrificing someone's life in an impersonal manner, e.g., the trolley dilemma. Wow, never realized that there were different names. I always thought the Anyway, the trolley dilemma. A runaway trolley is headed for 5 people who will be killed if it proceeds on its present course. The only way to save them is to pull a lever that will divert the trolley onto an alternate set of tracks where it will kill only 1 person instead of 5. Should you divert the trolley? Now, here's another way of asking basically the same question. The footbridge dilemma. A trolley threatens to kill 5 people. You are standing next to a large stranger on a raised footbridge that spans the tracks and stands in between the oncoming trolley and the 5 people. In this scenario, well, one's a stranger, the other are people. In this scenario, the only way to save the 5 people is to push the stranger off the bridge and onto the tracks below. He will die if you do this, but his body will stop the trolley from reaching the others. Should you push the stranger onto the tracks? I love that. Are they going to talk about the stranger and people? Although these two dilemmas share the same structure of saving 5 people by sacrificing 1, the philosophical community are aware that they tend to elicit different responses. People tend to favor the sacrificing option in the case of the trolley dilemma, i.e., the response in favor of pulling the lever. All right, yep, I'm going to let a person die to save 5 people, while they tend to favor the anti-sacrificing option in the case of the footbridge dilemma, i.e. the response against pushing the stranger off the bridge. But I'll let someone die to save 5 people, but I'm not going to kill someone to save 5 people. I'm not going to make someone die to save 5 people, but I'll do something that guarantees that someone will die to save 5 people, but that's as far as I can go. Golly, what a species. And it's just like, anyway. In this experiment, Green and colleagues used fMRI to monitor the brain activities of participants while they responded to personal dilemmas, e.g. the footbridge dilemma, impersonal dilemmas, e.g. the trolley dilemma, and non-moral dilemmas. It was found that personal moral dilemmas, when compared to impersonal and non-moral dilemmas, evoke increased activities in brain areas associated with social/affective processing, which is the medial frontal gyrus, the posterior cingulate gyrus, and the bilateral superior temporal sulcus. In contrast, impersonal and non-moral dilemmas, when compared to personal dilemmas, evoke increased activity in brain areas associated with working memory and abstract reasoning, so the dorsolateral prefrontal and the parietal areas. This result does not sit well with the lawyer-client model, in which reasoning processes typically play a minor role of post hoc rationalization. The experiment seems to suggest that, at least in the case of impersonal dilemmas, reasoning processes, which are manifested as a pro-sacrificing response to impersonal dilemmas, can either compete with affective processes, so the parallel competitive model, or intervene in them, so the default intervention model. Okay. Yeah, it's not always the lawyer-client model. Does someone actually think that? Green and colleagues also analyzed participants' response times. It turns out that participants were slow to approve of the personal sacrificial option. So this is the intervention happening, e.g., pushing the stranger off the bridge, but relatively quickly to disapprove of it, because that's the default. So this is the default interventionist. In contrast, approving of the impersonal sacrificial option, e.g., pulling the lever, and disapproving of it took an equally long time. Oh, because as though it wasn't even the default? This result is especially coherent with the default intervention model. That's what I was saying, but now I'm like, in contrast, approving of the impersonal sacrificial option. Well, yeah, because it's not the default all the time. Sometimes the affective latent processes or the affective processes, the type 1 processes, just don't even get triggered. I can't think of an example right now, but I could ask you a question where you didn't evolve with any pre-programmed like even sort of methods. It's just like such a weird question. It's like, hold on, no answer is being triggered by that, meaning that the default type 1 processes not so default in this moment, or sure, they got the input and they were just shrugged like this, which I think they rarely do, but sometimes maybe, or they just didn't even get the input, but I think they probably did, or they did come up with an answer, but there was like a type 1 process of like confusion maybe that intervened. Like maybe it wasn't a type 2 process. It was so absurd, so bizarre that there was a type 1 process of going, hold on a second, I don't know actually what's going on. Because it's not like every time someone says something crazy to you, you always like come up with an answer, right? Sometimes immediately it's like, huh? What? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like, yeah, wait, what'd you say? Anyway, moving on. So since personal dilemmas elicit a strong affective reaction against the sacrificial option, approving of it can be a simple and quick matter. Like approving. That's weird. Okay, so I'm gonna say disapproving because I think you're gonna understand that we're talking about that what we're talking about approving or disapproving is a sacrificial option, not something against the sacrificial option. So since personal dilemmas elicit a strong affective reaction against the sacrificial option, well, disapproving of the sacrificial option can be a simple and quick matter, i.e., just letting the affective reaction manifest itself in the judgment, while approving of the sacrificial option requires reasoning processes to intervene in the affective processes and override the affective reaction, which can be slow. The trolley/footbridge dilemmas examine relatively easy dilemmas in the sense that one form of response tends to be dominant in them. The sacrificial response, e.g., the response in favor of the pulling the lever, is dominant in impersonal dilemmas, such as the trolley case, while the anti-sacrificial option, e.g., the response against pushing the stranger off the bridge, is dominant in personal dilemmas such as the footbridge case. Another contrasting experiment examines a rather difficult dilemma known as the crying baby dilemma, in which people's reactions tend to split. All right, let's do this together. Let's see, what do we say? So here's the crying baby dilemma. Enemy soldiers have taken over your village. They have orders to kill all remaining civilians. You and some of your townspeople have sought refuge in the cellar of a large house. Outside, you hear the voices of soldiers who have come to search the house for valuables. Your baby begins to cry loudly. You cover his mouth to block the sound. If you remove your hand from his mouth, his crying will summon the attention of the soldiers, who will kill you, your child, and the others hiding in the cellar. To save yourself and the others, you must smother your child to death. Should you smother your child? Oh, by the way, I've seen that word should. Another way that people love to get out of these dilemmas is to say, I don't know what I would do in that situation. Bitch, you'll never be in that situation. I'm getting carried away. You will never be in that situation. That is not my question, what you would do in that situation. We are having a philosophical discussion here. I am not actually really trying to get to know, like, how you. We're never. Ugh. It turns out that engaging in difficult dilemmas, such as the crying baby dilemma, causes increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, which is associated with dealing with two or more incompatible behavioral responses. Researchers also found that the sacrificial response to a difficult dilemma, e.g., the response in favor of smothering the child to save oneself and others, is correlated with increased activity in the dorsal prefrontal cortex. Sacrificial, which is the seat of cognitive control and is necessary for overriding impulsive responses. These results provide further evidence of the view that reasoning processes can do something more than post hoc rationalization. Reasoning processes can compete with affective processes or intervene in them. Putting the evidence together, a reasonable view is that, as the phenomenon of moral dumbfounding suggests, reasoning processes rationalize the output of affective processes in a post hoc manner in some cases. However, as the studies by Green and colleagues suggest, reasoning processes can do something more than that in other cases. They either compete with affective processes, i.e., the parallel competitive model, or intervene in them, i.e., the default intervention model. This conclusion is consistent with what we suggested in the previous chapter concerning the interaction between type 1 processes and type 2 processes of reasoning. The conciliatory view, according to which the parallel competitive model, the default intervention model, and the lawyer-client model are all correct to some extent, but wrong to some extent, or inchoate. Okay, so how you doing, Sarah? Good. What are you up to? Checking on me. And then what if I am done streaming right now? Yeah, you're down to hang out. Excellent. All right. So I think I'm done streaming. Let me just take a look here. Yeah, because that would take a while. Excellent. All right. So we will resume with section 4.4, affective processes and reasoning processes, tomorrow. And what might happen, maybe I'm going to see, I'm going to end this stream, and then I may, in just a few minutes, start another stream, and maybe have a bit of a conversation, and that might be really interesting to you. Okay, have a great night if